look at the differences in the ratios here. 14 to 1, 12.2 to 1. And that, my friend, is how it's done. Woo! I got no brakes! Oh man, that thing smells just like the Camaro. What's up guys, it's Gary. So I wanted to dig out the old hot rod tractor here. I got a Transaxle I've been wanting to try on it. I got to do a little bit of preparation to make it work. But anyway, if you're new to the channel, the old hot rod tractor here, there's quite a few videos you can go back and check out. It is pretty much, it started out as a Craftsman chassis. It's been extended slightly, so the wheelbase is 16.5 inches longer than stock, and it has a 40 cubic inch 650cc Briggs V-twin. A lot of other little things that I'm not going to mention right now. A lot of videos on it you can go back and check out. And actually, it's the same chassis as this. This is not extended, but the wheelbase is longer because I did a similar thing where I put the axle out in front. So this one is just my lawnmower. This actually started out as a Husqvarna 2148, an orange Husqvarna, but it's the same chassis. It's an AYP chassis. This isn't done yet. That's not really done yet. They're never done, right? Projects like these are just sort of always evolving. And these, basically this is supposed to have the same trailer wheels on the back, the skinny tires on the back. I have those over on the patio. I actually stole the hubs off of it to put onto this. And so right now I'm just going to end up swapping these hubs back off in order to make this work again. But in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to take this Spicer Transaxle. I'm going to extend the axles much like they are, as you can see on here. That's not tight because I wasn't driving this thing with these wheels on it. Yeah, we're going to extend the axles, fill it with oil, and it's going to be a lot faster theoretically. So the Transaxle that is on here is an MST, a Peerless MST 206 6-speed with a, we'll just talk about the final drive, not the final drive, but the top gear input shaft to axle ratio. The top gear, 6th gear ratio, input shaft to axle is about 14 to 1, and on the Spicer over here it is 6 to 1. And that's where I was wrong. I actually made a mistake when I was checking the gear ratios, and there's one big thing that you have to think about when you're checking the gear ratios on these Transaxles, and that is, do you have an open differential still, or do you have a lock differential? I didn't realize that if you have an open differential and you're checking your gear ratio, you're spinning the input shaft, how many times does the axle turn, okay? Well, if you have a lock differential, they're just going to turn however many times it's going to be. So our 6th gear in this is 14 to 1. 14 turns of the input shaft gives us 1 turn of the axle. I thought that other gearbox was 6 to 1, and looking back on that, I did all the ratios. I'm like 30 to 1 in first. That's crazy. That's like, this is a 60 to 1. That's going to be insanely fast. None of it made sense because I was like, well, wait a minute. The pulley would have to be so much differently sized than every other lawnmower. I don't even know if it would be possible. So, open differential is actually going to give you half of the measurement. Unless you hold and lock up one side, then it should give you the correct measurement. But if you're just spinning the input shaft on with an open differential on one of these lawnmower Transaxles, or even a regular car differential, you're going to get only half as many turns on the axle. So that 6.1 to 1 is actually a 12.2 to 1. Now that is still faster. which is excellent. Let's take a look, in fact, at some of the gear. Let's take a look at the gear ratios. We'll see what's different and what's similar about the two transaxles. So let's start with what are they. So the one we have is a Peerless MST 206, 6-speed, very popular, very common transaxle. Came in like late 90s up all the way through to 2000s in a lot of different machines. And it is actually very good for this kind of a machine, for ripping around, and it's strong. It's not bulletproof. None of them really are. But so the good things about it is it comes from the factory with gear oil. So it has a seal on the brake shaft. It has axle seals, and it will hold the oil in for the most part. Now the other transaxle we're putting in there is a Spicer 4360-79. I don't really know a lot about these. They look basically identical on the inside. The design is really the same, other than, like I said, it has a chain drive reverse, and unfortunately it is a grease filled transmission, so it actually has like basically no seals whatsoever. There's no seal at all on the brake shaft. The axle seals are just little rubber washers, and I am definitely going to have some leakage going on when we fill that thing with gear oil. But look at the differences in the ratios here. We'll start with the one that really got me, and is still a good changeover. 6th gear, top gear, is what we're going from is a 14-to-1. We're jumping to a 12.2-to-1. Now that's actually excellent. That's still going to get us a little bit more speed if it has the power to pull it. It's not the crazy 6-to-1 that I thought it was, but I like that. Now look, interestingly, 15.5-to-1, 15.5-to-1. 5th gear is exactly the same, and that's also cool because that means the drop in RPM in 5th gear with our new trans is going to be actually a significant drop in RPM, which is awesome because this 15.5-to-1 only doing a half split to 14-to-1, not cool. It was just like, it was almost like there was no gear change at all. You just got the most minuscule RPM drop, and it didn't feel right. Actually, typically I would want to shift it from 4th straight to 6th. So now we have a really good split in RPM here. Now 4th to 5th was always good, and we're almost the same there, 21-to-1, 20-to-1. So the drop is going to be almost not even any different, 21 to 20. I mean, there's really not going to be much difference there. 30-to-1, our 3rd gear is exactly the same, which is also cool because that means ripping it around the yard. I'm usually in 3rd gear for that, kind of racing it around type stuff, getting it sideways. Will we be able to get sideways with an open diff? I don't know. But I really wanted to try this open differential. I've actually never run one of these machines with an open differential. Oh, back years ago I had one that was like, well, the same one actually. I had it when I first got it. I had an open diff, and it was pretty much totally stock. I think I bypassed the governor, and I had smooth tires, and I drove it around in the woods, and yeah, it doesn't really get traction with an open diff. But I've never really done the kind of stuff that I do now with one of these, ripping it up the road, trying to race it around a track, having a full chassis build the way I've done it with an open diff. So I'm curious how it's going to be. I actually think the reason I'm trying it is I think on the road in particular, it's going to be much better. Getting back to the similarities here, 2nd and 1st are very similar. 46-to-1 versus 48-to-1 over here. So 2nd is a little bit faster, and a similar jump from 1st to 2nd, and it's a little bit bigger jump 2nd to 3rd. So ultimately what I'm looking at here is better gear ratios. From 2nd to 6th is going to be a really good ripper. Like, it's going to have perfect drops. Whereas over here, you know, like I said, 5th and 6th just weren't really that good. But also check this out. 1st gear, 60-to-1, we're actually a little bit lower in 1st, 62-to-1, and we could drive it in the woods before, so we're still going to be able to drive it in the woods, no problem. And it's going to be perfect. So remember, we got 21.5-inch tall rear tires, and we actually achieved 47 miles an hour at 4,500 RPM before, approximately. So how fast will it go with a 12.2-to-1? I actually think it might run out of power before it runs out of gear, or before I get to 4,500 RPM, because of the way it felt before. We need to do more refinements. We need front wheel bearings instead of bronze bushings, and there's a few different things that I think I can do to squeak more power out of that engine, but I'm hoping I can get 50 miles an hour out of it. I guess we'll find out, and we'll see what this thing can do. I'm a little disappointed because I thought it was going to be faster than that, but I'm also happy because, well, it's still better than the other transmission as far as the gear ratios go. As far as strength and durability and all that stuff, the Peerless MST has proven to be reliable for me, and it is known throughout the community of people that build these machines. They are very good for a light-duty transaxle. So anyway, maybe that wasn't just rambling, maybe that was actually informative. You tell me. Let's start getting to work on this thing. Something I remembered I have to do with this spicer is drill it to accept oil, because these normally have grease, and there's, in this case, on this particular one, there's nowhere to put oil in it. So, which is interesting, because typically there would be a place to even inject the grease into. Well, let's pop it open, because I'm going to have to drill it, but I also wanted to just inspect it and make sure it was all good. So this Spicer 6-speed is very similar to the MST 206 that's in my tractor. The only real difference, or big difference, is that this has a reverse chain. Now, most of these lawn mower transmissions actually do have reverse chain. But the MST 206, one of the reasons why it's so good, one of the reasons why the MST 206 is so good is because it doesn't have a reverse chain. It's got a reverse gear. But, you know, on the MST, you have two of these ring gears, and the input shaft comes in right here. So it's splitting the load there, and then the reverse gear's in the center. Much nicer design, much better design. This only has one ring gear, so it's got a lot of side load on it, and then it has the reverse chain instead of a reverse gear. But other than that, the entire design of this is almost identical to almost, they're all pretty much like this. You know, all these lawn tractor transaxles have the gear set, the input, input ring and pinion kind of gear, and then reverse, whether it's a chain, usually a chain, and then it goes off to the final drive, basically. Now, I don't know what you'd consider the final drive, that or this. I believe when you, on the Peerless 820s, you can make them faster by basically changing the equivalent of what are these two gears. But this, of course, is your differential. And on this, we are not welding the differential. We're just leaving it open. Now, the other thing that sucks about these, it does not have a proper seal. It does look like you can get a bearing in here. I don't have any bearings for it, though. But these seals are just a joke. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's just a piece of rubber. I wouldn't be surprised if we have major oil leakage from there. Alright, so on to extending these axles. So you can see on this one, bolts welded to the ends of the axles. Now, the thing is, most of the load, if not pretty much all the load, is still on the axle itself. Because it is just butt welded, the bolt is just butt welded to the axle, you don't want to have a tremendous amount of load on that bolt. It could still be a weak point. The longest one I have here is 8 3/4. The other one's a little shorter because it was a shorter axle to begin with. Now, in this case, if I just put this on here, I'm already way past that. I'm at like 9 3/4, which is great, because if I'm looking at this axle, I don't remember how I did it on the other one. I know I didn't cut anything on my other one, but that to me looks like it would be a tremendously weak spot, even though there won't be a lot of load on the axle or on the bolt. It's still holding the wheel on. So I'm going to go ahead and chop that off on either end, and then that'll give me a good place to just weld straight to that end there. And I'm going to use a torch. We're going to heat that up to get a real good solid hot weld, I went ahead and I took those little rubber seals out. You want to take, if you have seals, get them out of there because they're going to overheat and melt anyway. And I obviously have the case on there just to keep any weld stuff from going in there. You could just take it all apart, take the axles out and do this, but I'm trying to do it the easy way, which is take as minimal things apart as possible. Wonder how that would do. What do you think? Think that's gonna work? Alright, on the first one, I think I had the wire speed a little too high, but that wasn't my main problem. My main problem was I couldn't see anything I was doing, and I just kept veering off. It's alright though, it'll be fine. This side, we got figured out a lot better, and that's much better looking. Now, it doesn't really matter how it looks, it matters how good it penetrated, because we got to pretty much grind all of it off. That's why you have a nice chamfer. When you do this, you need to have like a real good deep chamfer in order to get the weld down in there. And that's because you're grinding a lot of it off in order to fit the hub on, or the wheel, however you're doing it. Alright, we got her all welded up now. There you are. Well, she don't want to focus on anything but the flare. There we go. Yeah, I trust that. My hubs go on there. It appears to be one piece. Send it. It'll be fine. One thing I should definitely be doing, and I'm not doing right now, is putting bearing supports on these axles, but I do not have the parts. I wasn't really planning on or expecting to be doing this right now. Just sort of a last-minute decision, and I don't have the parts to do that, so we are just going to send it just like it was before. And hopefully not bend these axles like we bent the other ones, even though the other ones are already bent when I started driving it. But I have a plan for some brakes, so I don't even know where those bearing supports would go yet. I'm kind of thinking I'm going to go and try to figure out the brakes first. That is going to be in another video. We got the wrong size belt, however it's a lot cheaper, so I want to make this belt work. This is the belt I had on there. I've gone through one of them already, so this is the second one I had, and it's burned up now. 105.8, kind of an odd size, and that's why it's expensive. It's like 40 bucks. This is around 20 or 22, I think, 107 inch. And it seems to be, at first glance, okay, it's there, it's got some tension to it, but it's certainly not, it's not tight enough. It's going to slip. And I also noticed one reason why I may have burned up the other belt, because it did look like it was rubbing, and I didn't think it was rubbing. But it's, once you get into like third gear or so, there's some possible rubbage going on. Now, this guy right here, I don't know what that's from, but it's from some sort of mower deal. So this guy is going to go right about there, and that bolt that is holding my shifter mechanism on is going to get me started, because this already has holes, so I'm just going to bolt that right up to there. It's almost in the exact right spot, and then I'll just have to drill the other hole. And instead of weld, I was just going to weld it to the frame, but in this case I'm just going to bolt it to the frame. Alright, so I went through, I just spent like I don't know, probably 20 minutes or a half hour just going through all my options and staring at both the other bracket I had and this. Trying to think, how can I make this adjustable? How can I get it close to the trans, make it adjustable, clear this? So one of the issues I was running into is that where I wanted to put this underneath, the spacing of the pulley, where the pulley was going to end up was not going to work. It was too, it would have been too high. And then I would have had to somehow get this real low. And then I tried thinking about the other bracket and possibly putting it further up here because it was a much bigger bracket and really difficult to work with. So this hole was already in the frame. Well, I put it in the frame, but you can see it's directly in line with these. So I originally had the shifter there. And then when I went further with the project, it ended up being in the wrong spot because I decided to use this tie rod for the shifter. So I moved the shifter forward to make that work. So we're just dropping her into that hole. Now, right off the bat, I'm thinking I'm just going to probably drill a hole here, and that'll be it. You know, permanently mounted. It looks like our pulley is lined up beautifully. Got this in reverse right now, which is as far back as that's going to go. And when we go in through the gears, it does not interfere. It's close. It's not that close, really. It's solid, like, I would say, inch of clearance. We're just going to bolt it on, and, you know, we could always change it up in the future. And it's actually going to work out beautifully, I think. I think that's going to be excellent. I've already tried the clutch with it basically in this position. And then that's beautiful. Now we'll check the operation of the clutch. And that is definitely going to work. One thing I got to still think about, though, is belt guarding it onto here, because otherwise, we don't belt guard that, it's almost certainly going to flop off either up into here or down below, and then it's just going to burn up the belt because I'm going to be flying. I'm probably not going to know that. We also need a belt guard on the transaxle and the engine. More concerned about that, though, because if those come off, you just lose drive. But if this comes off, it's going to still drive, but it's going to burn up the belt. So we'll have to make something to have a belt guard. Lovely. Found my belt guard in the scrap pile. The hole was already in there, so picture that guy, the pulley that we just installed. That's basically going to go like that, bolted to the pulley. Problem is, it doesn't quite fit because this hole is already pre-drilled. Of course, it's not wanting to focus. Hole's in the wrong spot. I'm just going to take the cutoff wheel and slot that, because it doesn't really matter. The pulley's on there really tight, so we'll just be able to slot it exactly to where we need it. Unless, another option, we actually put it over here. Basically, we could just put that guy, it's right in the middle. All I gotta do is chop it a little shorter. Look how perfect that is. Got a little tiny gap in there, and it's never going to be able to come past that, which is exactly what you want with a belt guard. It's slightly adjustable. You know, it could be moved in and out. And of course, when you do the belt or take the belt off, pretty much just take that thing right out of there. All right, let me be filling you in with the details. So that bolt down there is where my ground wire is bolted to, but there was a very short bolt. I found a long bolt. It was the only long bolt I had that had threads all the way through, so it's beautiful. I found exactly what I need, and it was the only one I had. This is actually a belt guard off of probably one of these mowers. You know, this actually, I believe, would have been at the back. Yeah, it would. It would be at the back, bolted in the frame, up against the really large pulley, because of course, remember, the frame is normally a big box. And so it would be all the way up against that frame. Pulley's much larger. So I put the long bolt in there. Obviously, there's a nylock nut holding the ground wire tight against the frame. Stuck that nylock on there. So now I bent this baby a little bit, just spread it out a little bit more than it was. We're just going to stick that guy on there like that. And it is going to go right there. And I'm going to have another one, the other kind of same thing that went on the back. And I'm going to try to get that on this side somehow. Because the problem is you can't just go and weld that to the frame, because then you'll never be able to get the belt off. It's a real pain. So they have to be bolted on. Okie dokie. So, put this washer on here. Probably not necessary, but I like it. Then, let's put this spacer on here. Just like that, just because we don't have any threads right there. Now, the question is, so I have a lock washer. Tell me what you guys think. Do we want to put the lock washer right there, then snug the nut, then put the lock nut or the jam nut on? Or do we want to do it the way that I'm going to do it? The way that I have done it in the past. Alright, now I may snug that up with a tool, but frankly it's probably not even necessary. Put the lock washer in between. And our nut. Now again, since we have that collar there, we have like no play now. Now we can snug this up a bit more with a wrench or a socket, whatever you want, and then we can tighten up our jam nut. And that, my friend, is how it's done. And that's beautiful because we still got some bolt hanging out there. On the other setup, like I said, I had a short axle and I had like half of the threads engaged on my lock nut, and I did not even have lock washers. So we're looking damn good now. So I'm just gonna snug that up, but not go too crazy, no reason to. Ugh. Oh, yeah. If they didn't come off on the other setup, then they definitely ain't coming off now. I like that a lot. We are looking good there. Alright, wheels are back on. We are just about ready to go. We are going to send this thing with no brakes just to test it out, and then hopefully be able to slow it down. Just got to put gear oil in this thing. So I looked in there, looked into my collection of what I got. This is what I got. This is our choices. Typically, I do put 75/90 in there. In fact, I believe this was left over from one of my Transaxle fills. But this is only like a little over half of a quart. Then I found this. I've been sitting on this for years. This is a brand new Redline synthetic 75/90, which I had for my Mustang, I think. No, what did I have this for? Oh, my Miata. I actually had this for my Miata, and actually for that over there is a viscous LSD for the Miata that I never did install on it. So it is kind of unfortunate that we're going to probably lose a lot of this through leaking, but I'm not going to use it on anything else. I don't know what the Mercedes takes, so we're just gonna use it. All right, it's been like a month since this thing last ran. Let's hope it fires up. And basically, I still got it on the stands. I'm going to run it through the gears and make sure things happen. don't know if you can see that, but we still got a really wobbly wheel here, and it's the hub. That's not great. This hub is so bent. I'm gonna have to see if I mean, I'm not gonna do it right now, I don't think. I'm gonna have to see if I can try to get that hub to go straight, but I've already tried and I never did get it. So it almost seems worse than it was, which is weird, but that really sucks. I think we're just going to take it up the road a little bit and see how it is. Man, that's going to kill the freaking... Oh, wow, where am I leaking gear oil out very badly? The brake seal. Yeah, I had a feeling that was going to happen. She's freaking not going to last long. Or it's not going to hold its gear oil in very long. Let me see here. Also, I think I overfilled it. I didn't really mean to overfill it. I filled it. It didn't even take a quart, and it you know, it was like basically all the way up to the plug to the hole. So. Alright, so a quick bit of context here. I'm about to talk about the gear ratios again. Now, the thing we showed you before with the gear ratios and talking about the open differential giving you half of the reading, well, I filmed that later after this. And so this is the first time where I actually realized, wait a minute, something's not right. This does not have the ratios that I thought it did, which of course we already went over why that is. So I just thought it was kind of entertaining to watch my reaction. So here you go. Alright. Whoa, we got a lot of oil leaking out. Is it possible that I was wrong about the gear ratios? Now, think about this. I don't think this is the case, but if it's an open differential and you're spinning the input shaft and you're watching one side spin, is it possible that I'm only getting half of the reading? So in other words, it's not 6-to-1, it's a 12-to-1, which would still be faster. But the reason is, first gear is easily crawlable. It's like just like the other transmission. I mean, you've seen I was able to putt around in first gear, no problem. Now, I will say, when I got it into third, it did seem like there was going to be a lot more there. So I'm going to put you on my head, and we're going to go up the road a little bit. I'm a little bit more, I'm less worried now, but I'm also disappointed because I don't think that thing's as fast as I thought it was. Only one way to find out. Let's get it on the road and actually see what it can do. Not necessarily max it out with that bent wheel spill or bent hub. faster. Ah, shoot, I never hit, son of a bitch. I never hit the start trip odometer deal. Ow, freaking exhaust. Okay, I think we got it now. I can't believe I just ripped on that thing and I didn't even get a top speed because it was definitely faster. Hopefully I got a good GPS signal over here. a lot better now with the open differential and our U-turn. So it's faster, but as I thought, it doesn't have the power. It doesn't have the power to get it past a certain speed. With proper wheel bearings on the front, I think it would be a lot better. I'm going to go for another run down this road. I don't even know if you can hear me, but we'll find that out when I go back. Well, I'll tell you what, I like that transmission a lot better for a couple reasons. It's not as maybe not as fast as I thought it was going to be, but we'll talk about it. Oh. Whew, that was freaking awesome. I know it's been a while since I've driven the thing. So to me, it felt faster. Like in top gear, first of all, let's just talk about that transaxle. I don't know how much oil we lost, and I parked it a little off to the side and over there because I don't want it dripping all over the floor here, but it's actually quieter than the MST. Now, that MST has some time on it. I've been ripping on that for a while, and it has a locked diff, which maybe that has something to do with it as well. I don't know. But, you know, the straight cut gears in these things, they make all that noise. It's a good noise. I like it. But that thing is way quieter. By the way, the 820, the heavy-duty 820 I have, when I ran that for a bit up the road, it was like deafeningly loud. Really bad. But I also later found out it needed bearings and stuff. It had all worn-out bearings. But anyway, it's quieter, which it still makes the noise, but I like that it's quieter. It is smooth. It shifts good. Shifts pretty good. It's got good gear ratios. Like, I like the gear ratios a lot better than the MST. See, the MST, they're both 6-speed. The Spicer and the MST, the Peerless, are both 6-speed here. The Peerless that I had before had a really tight first and second, and then third, fourth, and fifth had a pretty decent gap, like a good road, like bum, bum, bum. But then you'd hit 6 and it was like not even an existing gear. 5th and 6th were so close you could basically skip. It was better to skip 4th to 6th. This is perfect. This has perfect spacing between each gear, and then 6th gear has a longer jump even than like 4th to 5th, it seems like. So it just seems like you're clicking it into overdrive, but it is faster. Now here's the weird thing. I gotta look at it again, but we only, I don't know how this is possible. Honestly, it felt a lot faster. We only achieved 48 miles an hour. So I gotta go look again. I'm pretty sure I went 47 or like 46.8 or something before. So we only basically went 1 mile an hour faster than before. Now it is losing, it doesn't have the power to pull. So I went, here's the thing though, I went 47 miles an hour at about 4,500 RPM, I think. I got to look back on the video and kind of listen to it because it's hard to see the tack and it's hard to see everything. But I think I hit about 4,500. And then when you do the math on the gear ratio, that transaxle, it says about 47 miles an hour is what you'd hit at about 4,500 RPM. Now, I'm barely seeing over 4,000. Now, coming down the hill and also on that road, at a couple points I was able to get it past 4,000, more or less from going downhill. But yeah, we're hitting a wall at about 4,000 RPM power-wise, and that doesn't surprise me because these engines, they're 3,600 RPM engines. It's tuned, governed, cammed, all of that to make peak power constantly at 3,600. So ungoverning the engine gives you more revs, but if you don't have, if the power, the curve drops off after 3,600 or 4,000 RPM, there's not much you can do about that. They make cams for these engines. Porting the heads is another thing because the head flow is certainly going to be, these heads aren't great. I've seen plenty of them to know how the ports are and everything. The heads have a lot of improvement to be had. But that's what I'm saying. I don't have enough power. I also have the smallest Intech V-twin there is. So I have a 40 cubic inch 656 cc. I could jump up to a 44 cube or even a 49 cubic inch V-twin with upwards of 26, 27 horsepower with a 49 cube stock, and therefore jetted, piped, ungoverned. That could be a 60 mile an hour engine right there. I have a goal to get this thing to 60 miles an hour. We only hit 48. I think wheel bearings in the front instead of bushings are going to help. I think not having a rear wheel that's doing this, which actually it rode a lot smoother this time, because before both wheels were, before we had a bent axle, not just a bent wheel hub. So that was a big difference. The fact that I consistently just drove it that fast around corners and the wheels didn't fly off, I'm actually really happy about and a little bit surprised. You get up to about 45 to 50 miles an hour and you see them trees flying by, and it is a little... I only thought about it for a split second. Like, okay, if something happens, those trees are going to be a big problem. But 99% of the time, I'm just thinking about how awesome that thing is and ripping it. And, yeah, so let me show you the proof, which is in the pudding here, of the... Oh, did I lose it? View. Yeah, so here you go. So our trip this time was 2.8 miles. Well, and then I turned it off, so it was more than that, because I went back again. Our average speed was 28 miles an hour, but our max speed was only 48 miles an hour. So 48 miles an hour. So I don't know. I mean, seat of the pants, I was like, okay, this thing is definitely faster in 6th gear. But again, I only had the power to reach 4,000 or 4,200 RPM, so we just weren't able to pull the gear. And that's what I said I thought was going to happen. I said I thought it was going to run out of power before it runs out of gear. And don't get me wrong, it sounds like it's screaming. And I got to recheck the tach, make sure that's accurate, because it does sound like I'm hitting a little bit more than 4,000. But I mean, again, a lawnmower at 3,600 kind of sounds like pretty revvy. So it probably is only about 4,000, 4,200. I think that tach should be accurate. It's got adjustments, fine adjustments on it. You set it up for what cylinder. Typically, so that's a regular tach that's set up for 4-cylinder, 8-cylinder, or 6-cylinder, and you set it to 4-cylinder for a V-twin. That's just the universal thing that everybody knows to do. It works. I've had 2 different tachs on there that work by setting it to 4-cylinder, and I've rechecked it with an inductive tach before to make sure it was accurate, and it was. So I just got to recheck it. But yeah, that was what it was. And I'm happy and disappointed at the same time. I'm happy because I got the thing going again. I had a very good time just driving it. The Transaxle actually performed very well. But I thought we were going to get more than... I was hoping we were going to get 50 miles an hour out of it. I was hoping we'd at least squeak out that extra little bit to get to 50. Coming back, I didn't have the GPS speedo going, and I think I hit 50. Because coming back is downhill. There's a pretty big downhill, and I laid into it on the downhill, and that doesn't count, right? So it's downhill. But I heard the revs go up a lot higher. I think I got her close to 4,500. But yeah. But anyway, thanks guys for subscribing. If you're not subscribed and you like what you just saw, go subscribe, hit the like button, comment down below. All the cool stuff that YouTubers tell you to do, it's got to be done. Thank you guys. I'll see you next time. So check this out. We did not come back without failure. I noticed the brake was all the way up against the transmission, or the mount there, caliper mount, or whatever you want to call it, drum mount, brake drum mount. Yeah, check it out. The set screws were just not enough, so I think what I'm going to end up doing to solve that issue is just like taking a drill bit and kind of drilling a little, you know, like a little nub, a little divot into the axle in order to actually secure that properly to the axle, because I didn't even notice that. Must have happened from all the cornering force. I was really ripping it around the corners. This side's good, and actually it makes sense because the hardest cornering was turning right, so it was pushing on that side. But this side's still good. But that's best case scenario right there. I mean, better than it coming off. Went in, so. And with the open diff, by the way, that was the other thing I wanted to say. I definitely think it handles better on the road with the open diff. Of course, I still got to do a little bit of grass testing and stuff, but after we get the brakes done, we'll do some more driving in different terrain.